Welcome to the Minnesota Rovers Tuesday evening presentation. Minnesota Rovers is an outdoors club based in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Our members organize trips that range from 1 hour to 2 weeks in Minnesota or further afield. Examples of our activities include hiking, biking, backpacking, skiing, snowshoeing, paddling, and rock climbing. We also organize conservation and trail clearing trips. Our members have experience and skills in many outdoor activities, so if you want to learn a new outdoor activity, we can probably help you. For more information, go to mnrovers.org. Now let's move on to this week's presentation.
Tonight we're going to talk about Rover strategic planning. Our main presenter, Laura, has been a Rover for over 7 years. She appreciates exploring nature, especially the wilderness, and learning about different cultures. She enjoys backpacking, camping, biking, paddling, scuba diving, snowshoeing, and cross-country skiing. She has thru-hiked a number of long-distance trails, including the Ice Age Trail in Wisconsin, which is 1,200 miles long, which is a real achievement, in my opinion. The John Muir Trail in California, which is over 200 miles long, and the Tour de Mont Blanc Trail in Europe, which is over 100 miles long. So please welcome Laura.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us. What we wanted to do today is we wanted to share the work that's been going on for the last 6 months as we have been working to develop a strategic plan for the club. So welcome, everyone. We want to make this a listen and learn opportunity. We want to share what we've been working on. Nothing is solidified at this point, but we wanted to share where we are and then gather feedback from the members. So we've crafted this slide deck whereby members of a committee are actually going to present different slides and kind of walk you through where we are. And then what we'd like to do at the very end is take a bunch of questions. So with that, I will move to the next slide. Are you seeing different toolbars and stuff in the screen there, Stacy?
No.
Or not?
No toolbar.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Laura. So why are we doing strategic planning now? So some of you may know that we are turning 70 next year, 2024. We started in 1954, and over the past 70 years, we have seen a lot of changes in society, activities, what we do, but especially in the last, I would say, 4 years with COVID, we've seen a real increase in our membership, and also Zoom and hybrid meetings have become a thing. So we wanted to look at where we are, where we want to be, what we want to be going forward, and what it would take to get there. And so, what kind of changes do we have to make to what we do? And so over the past several months, many people have participated, as you will hear about. And I want to thank everybody who has participated, especially I want to thank Kathy and Laura. They have really been amazing in shepherding us through this process. And so I guess with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kathy to talk about the process.
Hello, yes. Actually, this whole process started in the spring of this year, so it's been a while. With some thoughts from the board about wanting to do some more, I would say, specific strategic planning. In 2019, we did a future search, which really kind of set a vision for the future. At the same time, we didn't really get down to brass tacks about what's going to change within the organization. The good news, however, was that they were ready to jump on the opportunities afforded by the pandemic as a result of that visioning session, and the organization had grown tremendously. So we met together with Laura and Stacy, and I met together, talked a little bit about what the board wanted to do this year to get more specific, about what to focus on, and put a proposal together for them that was to be much more inclusive of membership than the first time around. The first time we did actually was also inclusive of membership, but it was about 2 days off site, and they said no can do anymore. Okay, so the proposal was to do some world cafes, and about 60 members, everyone was invited, about 60 members showed up to 4 world cafes, which was basically just conversations that people had with one another with the kind of questions that we were asking to try to get at the sense of what is this club today to the Rovers members, and what do they want it to be? So from that perspective, and that was in August, in September, the planning committee, which is the board, as well as 6 additional members of the membership, so 20 people altogether, have been dedicating their time September, October, November here coming up again, and half-day planning sessions to actually think through the results of that future search. The World Cafes, and also some of that realities that Laura will talk about later. And how they apply and deal with that to move into sustainability. So that's where we are. And then you'll see the member updates and input. So you've gotten the survey. Laura's going to show you the results of that survey. We had a really good response to that survey, and as well as we're doing this now. And so to get more feedback. What comes out of that, there's one more meeting of the whole planning team, and that's just before Thanksgiving. And so they'll make some final decisions about what the plan is and then send it to the board itself. The board will work through and adopt the plan and finalize and adopt the plan in their December meeting, and hopefully start execution immediately in 2024. And the new board will take on further implementation.
So based on the World Cafes that Kathy talked about, the board and some of the additional members met for strategic planning sessions and used the input to craft a mission and vision, and then you'll also hear about values. So when we looked at and considered a mission, our the first thing that we thought about was, what were we? We are outdoor enthusiasts, and community was something that came up quite often, was something that was mentioned a lot. And so we knew that that had to be part of the mission. And then we also thought about what we did. What do we do? What do we want to do? And so playing together, learning together, and caring for our natural world were the 3 main activities that came out that we wanted to communicate to the world what we do. And then we chose very specifically the verbs foster and support because, first of all, we wanted to foster those activities. But then it wasn't just a one and done thing. It wasn't like, we're just going to do this and be done. We wanted to support the community and have that continue once people had come in and become a part of the community. As far as our vision goes, these words, these terms were all part of actually the value discussion. But as we talked about the values, we realized, as we thought about being welcoming and respectful and friendship oriented as a community, we realized that that was really our vision, that is what we want to be to the outside world. And that's what we want to communicate, that we are a community of outdoor enthusiasts that is welcoming, respectful, and friendship oriented.
Thank you, Stacy. So it's really important that the club recognize this as the purpose of the club. This is what we call our strategic framework. And everything that we do in our club should align with this mission. Our activities, everything that we do, our values, our culture, all of our strategic initiatives. That's how important these two statements really are. And this became the basis for trying to understand, where do we want to be in the future if we want to be a sustainable club? And how does that where align? And it has to be the basis of this mission. So these two statements here are critical to the foundation of all of the strategic planning going forward. Thank you, Stacy.
Okay, and then to clarify our core values, we took all of our information we got from emails and the last survey and the World Cafes, the questions that were asked. We came up with a lot of words that seemed to be our mission. We made up 4 missions. These missions came up with these words that were really our values. And as we came out with those, we came up with our values, and these are them. We support each other in experiencing the outdoors, discovering other lands and cultures, and learning new skills. We care for the natural world by promoting awareness of how we impact the environment, by working on conservation efforts, collaborating with organizations, and we volunteer our time. And this is the big thing that's a little different than we've seen in the past, but we wanted to get it in here because that is this club. This club is us running it as members. And a lot of people that have come in newer in the last, I don't know how many years here, 10 years, don't always realize that this is our club. And if we don't all work on it, it will not survive us, the ones that are working. So we wanted to implement and have this as part of our core values, is that we volunteer our time to coordinate and support trips and activities. We already know that, but also to carry out the operations of the club and to reach out to new members, to potential and new members, and let them know who we are, what we are, and hopefully recruit some people that have the skills to help us and the passion to help us along the way. So that's what we came up with for our core values.
Thank you, Lori. So you might start to notice here there are some common themes, right? And these are the common themes. This is the alignment and the strategic framework between the mission, the vision, and our core values. Our core values are the principles by which we live. This is how our club lives and breathes, by these core principles: supporting one another, learning, caring for the natural world, and then supporting the club, sustainability for the club. So thank you, Lori. So the next thing I wanted to do was, now that we've shared what the strategic framework is, what is the purpose of the club? What is our mission, right? What is the vision for the club? And then how and what are those values and principles that are going to move the club forward to create that sustainability? What we wanted to do is we wanted to look at, so where are the big issues in the club? So what we did is we decided to poll the board and ask them, where do you think the big issues and challenges and concerns are for the club? And the number one thing that came up was sustainability. Okay, so what do we need to do to be sustainable and be a future club for the next 70 years for the follow-on Rovers to continue? So we talked about sustainability and what are those risks to sustainability, and we listed different issues. So what we did is, in the World Cafes, we actually gathered additional input from members, and then we took all of that back to the committees and said, look, this is everything that we've learned. This is everything that we heard. These were the things that we heard the most. These are the things we think were the highest priorities, because other members kept saying it. And when you hear something 50 times, it's obviously important to a lot of people. So what we did is we had a huge board. We listed what we believed the issues were, and we did what we call a dot exercise. And we said, everyone gets a couple votes, 3 votes. Put a dot where you think the highest priority issue is. And that's how we decided on these are the top 3 strategic issues. So the first one was that we don't have enough members engaged to sustain the community. So the fact of the matter is, many members didn't even know that there's a few people in the club doing the majority of the work. So those people who are doing the majority of the work are getting burned out, they're getting tired, and they just don't have the bandwidth to keep it up. So what we need to do is figure out how can we get more members engaged and contributing to running the club. So that is our strategic goal. So you can see the issue is we don't have enough engagement. Our goal is to get engagement and contribution. So get members to participate, to coordinate, to volunteer, whether it's leading a trip, whether it's participating on a committee, whether it's volunteering to lead an activity at an event. So that's the issue and that's the goal. That was the number 1 strategic issue and thus our highest priority strategic goal. Number 2 was the way that the club currently does the work is not sustainable. So you heard me say earlier that there's a handful of people doing a lot of the work. So those are the people who are running extravaganza, running the intro show, the folks on the board, and that's not a sustainable process. So what we need to do is we need to look at that work and figure out how can we effectively and efficiently restructure that work so that we are sustainable. And that was our number 2 priority. So that's where we're going to focus our goal, restructuring this work. So our third issue that came out, and this was actually a huge surprise to many of us, is our members were saying, I didn't see the email. I didn't understand this. I didn't know this was happening. And we're like, oh my God, we thought we were effectively communicating and we weren't. So that was a huge learning. So if we are a club of members and we want to serve in the best interest of the members, we need to better understand what it takes to serve the members. And in order to do that, we have to have effective 2-way communication. So in other words, members have to be able to communicate to us. We have to be able to hear that, and we have to be able to adjust to that. So that's what goal number 3 is, trying to figure out how we can make our communications more effective. And we are still learning on ways to do that. It's not just about investing in new tools. It might be something as simple as explaining it differently, right? So we're trying all kinds of different things. And an example of this is the first survey you received was very different than the last survey you received. So we made adjustments in how we communicated based on what we learned. So we're doing lots of testing and trying to, pardon me, figure this out. So I just wanted to share. This is how we decided on our top 3 strategic issues and what our goals are. So now what we're going to do is we're going to deep dive into each one of these strategic issues and the goal and the proposed possible actions on how we can achieve the goal. So nothing that follows in the next set of slides is set in stone. This is what the strategic committees have been working on, refining what is the issue, what is the goal, and how can we possibly solve this. So what we've been doing is gathering member feedback. So at the end, we'll have the opportunity to gather more feedback. But again, as everyone goes through the issue and goal, just remember, this is a proposal. Nothing is set in stone. Okay? So first up, goal number 1, our highest priority goal. Jen.
Hi. So our goal is to get Rover members more engaged and contributing to the Rover community by participating and coordinating and volunteering. So the strategic issue, again, that Laura said, was our members aren't as engaged as they could be, that we need them to be to sustain the community. Our strategic goal is to get more Rover members to contribute to the Rover community by participating, coordinating, and volunteering. So we came up with some proposed actions to achieve the goal, including creating a buddy mentor system. And this might be expanding mentorship. It might be similar to our beginner backpacking program, or as easy as helping someone coordinate a trip. Gathering and figuring out how many people can help and what they can help with the Rovers. Intentional community building events such as new Rover orientation and mentorship programs, having smaller group sub-events. So might not be as intimidating. And creating a volunteer recognition system, like volunteer recognition events, or a place to see who's volunteering or coordinating or participating in the activities. So we still have a lot of work to do, and we're looking forward to seeing how it ends.
Right. Thank you, Jen. So I just want to reiterate, so this issue, the goals, and these potential actions, they came from what we heard from the members. We heard a lot of members saying, look, I don't lead a trip because I'm intimidated and I don't know how to lead a trip or how to plan a trip. Pair me with someone who's already done it, and I'm happy to coordinate a trip, right? We heard that over and over and over again. We heard things around how to achieve the goal. Number 2, build intentional building events, or make intentional community building events, that maybe if we had smaller groups of people with similar interests, that these events would draw and build engagement, and more participation would evolve from that. And then finally, we heard, if you recognize or reward volunteers, maybe that's another way to get people to step forward. So we're looking at all kinds of different options, but these right now are the focus of the committee that Jen's on. You can see the committee members up at the top. So thank you, committee members, and we'll get your feedback toward the end of this session. So goal number 2, Melissa.
Our group, Barb and Dave and David Byrne and me and Pam, are looking at making the work of running the Rovers sustainable by restructuring the work, and that's board things and things beyond the board. So the way Rovers is currently run isn't sustainable, because they're 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. So we're trying to come up with ways to share the duties and the planning that goes on in running this club. So we're trying to make it the Rovers more sustainable by restructuring what needs to get done and how it needs to get done. And our top 3 things from what everybody responded to via surveys was, we're going to look at governance and operational changes. So how is the board going to perform differently? What might they do differently? What might we take from the board and spread out either to the members of Rovers, or doing some outsourcing, maybe the financial part of it or the website part of it. Reducing meeting hours, both for weekly meetings and the board, is something we're also going to look at. And for the next at least year, we're thinking suspending events. The intro show has gone away because Midwest Mountaineering kind of went away, but the extravaganza, perhaps right now we don't need to be focusing so much on getting new people, but on working with the members we do have. And so I think 2024 will be a reassessing year. So that's what all of us are working on, looking at.
Melissa, thank you. And thanks to the committee. You guys are doing great work. This is an enormous task. So this task really starts with looking at the work and looking at all of the specific tasks that are performed, trying to categorize, are those tasks strategic? Are they operational? How much time do these tasks take? Is there any way we could delegate this task, stop this task? Maybe this task isn't aligned with the mission anymore. Is there some way we can outsource, restaff this somehow? So this is enormous. And most of this has fallen on the board, and they are just championing this. Let me just say, they are working in small spreadsheets, breaking out tasks, hours, minutes. I know I'm driving them nuts with this, but we need that level of detail to figure out, how can we restructure this work to make it sustainable? So initially there's going to be more work, but in the end, it will be more efficient and more effective, and it will work. So you will see some of these goals are going to be difficult, but a lot of this work is already getting done. So thank you, Melissa, and thank you to your committee. Goal number 3. Lori, I think we're back to you.
There we go. Yeah, as Laura talked about these goals, again, this was created from all of your input. The spreadsheets were enormous. We went through them all. We pulled out anything to do with communications for our little group here. And we came up with the issue is our current process for communicating with members is inefficient, ineffective. And the goal we're creating to create, promote, and use effective two-way communication tools so that we can communicate both ways with all our members, prospective members, partners. We want to be able to have everyone be able to use the tools that they normally use, or breaking down. One of the things we've talked about, and this is nothing's in stone yet, but one of the things we've talked about is what people have been asking for literally years is breaking down biking groups, hiking groups, conservation groups, and so on, and having these groups may help people not get as many emails and have different ways to communicate, and being able to sign into the website and go everywhere from there and not having another sign in somewhere. And these are things that we're going to try to create, collaboration and so on. So the proposed actions, our first is to understand the members, understanding our audience, who needs what, how, what works best. And we've been gathering that already. So that's been helpful. And develop new processes to get things done, automate things a lot more, use our technology better, and then the collaboration tools themselves are things that we're finding out we can do with our current systems. Some of them we can do with our current systems, and more we may be able to, but we're not sure yet. But it might just take the purchase of another API, I guess, which I didn't even know what that was prior to this. So this is not going to be my field. But anyways, yeah, it's really exciting doing this work. And I just see so many advances coming out of this planning process. So I hope everyone gets involved. Thanks.
Lori, thank you. And thanks to your committee, because again, this is an enormous task. So, trying to figure out what isn't working in communications is difficult. But when we ask members and members share, then we can identify the problems. Our challenge is that we can't meet the needs of every single member. So what we have to do is try to meet the needs that are best for the most members. So that's what we're looking to do. And we're running some tests, and we're working with Jody trying to figure out how on earth can we make this happen with our tools. So there's a lot of work being done on this committee. So thank you to this committee. And I look forward to our next session and seeing where we go from here. So speaking of where we go from here, what I wanted to do is talk about what's next, what's happening next in this immediate session. So let's start up here at the top left side, and you'll see where I put in a yellow rectangle. Originally, we're going to have breakout sessions today and talk about the goals and the mission and values in specific breakout rooms. But then Lori and Rob said, well, hey, wait a second. If you do that, then not everyone gets to hear the answer to all of the great questions and the feedback. So maybe it's better if we just do this en masse, and we all just meet in a big group, and we just kind of have a facilitated Q&A session. That way everyone gets to hear the answers and everyone can hear the feedback, because our strategy is intertwined. What the communications group is doing, what the work restructuring group is doing, and what the driving engagement and participation group is doing, they're all interrelated. So we all need to hear what the members are saying and thinking. So today, instead of a breakout group, we're going to have a mass Q&A session at the end where you can ask your questions, provide feedback, and we'll move forward from there. So the next thing I want to do today is I want to share what we learned from our survey. Okay, so thank you to everyone who took the survey. We learned a lot, and that is influencing the next session. So the next box is the final strategy planning session. So in that session, the committees will have your feedback. I've broken it all into a massive spreadsheet again. Sorry, guys. And they will see what you've written. It'll be anonymous to them, so they won't know who wrote what, but they will have your feedback. And they can take that into consideration as they're developing their plans. They're going to be building roadmaps on what can we do right now? What can we do in the short term? And what are things we have to plan a little bit longer for? So they're going to be forming these plans. Once we have these plans, we're going to take that back to the board for approval and share it with the members. So there might be some changes that we have to do with the state of Minnesota, depending on what's being proposed and what are the actions, just by the sheer fact that we're a not-for-profit and we are under some bylaw constraints. So there are certain things that we'll have to do, but all of this will be communicated back to the members to get feedback. Again, we're not going to be able to meet the needs of every single member, but what we're trying to do is meet the need that's of best interest of the overall club. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do here in red is form some project teams or some committees for some of the longer term projects. And this is where we need member help. And that's why in the survey you saw the question about, do you happen to have a passion for this area and or skills in this area? Because we could use your help. So we want to form some small teams around these, because small teams are efficient and they can then take it forward and empower those teams to move those forward. Okay. So this is what's happening next. So what I'm going to do is share out what we learned from the survey. Then we're going to have a Q&A and gather some of your feedback. So survey results. So what we did is we sent out an 8-question survey to, at the moment, I think this was on the 16th of October, we had 869 members. And what we did is we proposed the mission, vision, and value statements that you saw at the beginning of this presentation. We also proposed the 3 strategic goals, issues, and actions slides that you also saw in this presentation. And what we did is we asked in the survey, on a scale of I hate it to a scale of I love it, what do you think? How does that resonate with you? And then we gathered all of that data and then we summed it up, and you'll see that in a minute. And then we asked an open-ended question that said, basically, now that you've seen our strategic direction and what we're proposing, how does that resonate with you? What are your concerns? What are your comments? And we got a lot of comments and concerns, which is great. Because if we don't know our audience, we can't serve our audience. That's why it's so important to take these surveys. And then the last question was, we need your help. We have a lot of work ahead of us. If we're going to make these changes, if we're going to make this sustainable, we're trying to break these into really small teams with really small chunks of work. So it is doable, only a few hours a month. This is what we need. And we ask for volunteers. So that was the survey. And the numbers at the bottom tell us a story. 61% of our members opened that email. That's huge. That's over 400 people. That's great. That is great. But then the last number is even more telltale. 21% of our members responded to the survey. 183 members took the time to take the survey, tell us what they think, and help influence the strategy. That's huge. That's 21% of our membership. So thank you to the members who took the survey, who took the action and are sharing their thoughts, their concerns, and helping us build this strategy, because it's going to be better the more the members contribute. So thank you. I want to next share the survey results. So this looks pretty complicated, but let me break it down pretty simply. On the left is the bottom line. What we propose resonates with members. And again, it doesn't resonate with every single member, but it does with most members. So what you see along the left axis, the mission, vision, values, goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, and overall, those were the questions that we presented to the members. And we said, do you hate this or do you love this? So you can see in the red, the percentage of respondents that hated it, not very significant. You can see in the yellow, the percentage of respondent members who said, yeah, it's okay. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's okay. They were kind of in that middle road. Okay. But look at the green. The green is huge. This is kudos to everyone who's been giving us feedback, everyone who's been sending us emails, taking surveys. Your voice was heard because this is resonating with you. These numbers are significant. Our mission and vision aligns with 86% like it or love it. That's fantastic. So the committees, I hope all the committees are on this call too. I hope you see this and know that all the work you're doing is resonating with the members and what we're developing will serve our members. This is huge. All right. So let me talk a little bit about some of the key takeaways. So of the people who took the survey, 68% filled in that blank that said, what's your biggest concern, and give us comments. 68%. That's huge. That's 124 comments. These comments will be shared with the strategy committees, but they will be shared anonymously. No one will know, that Laura said this or Stacy said that. So they will get just the comments. Okay. So what the committees will do with those comments then, as they're developing the strategy, these comments will influence the development of that on how they plan to move forward. So this is really huge. So I just want to talk a few minutes about some of the major concerns. So change, that was probably, that's a big category, but change management and changing from our current state to future state. There was a lot of questions about, oh my God, this is huge. It's more work. I'm worried about this and specific elements of the strategy. That's normal. Change is really difficult. It's something that we're using change management with. That's why we're bringing you on this journey. That's why we're sharing this now as a proposal, as opposed to the end. That's why we're asking the members to help us build this, to take change management into account and build it together. We will be the most successful, and change is going to require help. So we're going to ask everyone to advocate for this and everyone to contribute, but we will get through this change. The next biggest concern was really around how are we going to get more members involved? We're all busy. Our lives are busy. I don't have time. I'm taking care of my parents. I'm taking care of kids. I'm working. I work on 2 other boards. How are we going to get more members involved? So the committees are working on this. And basically what we're trying to do is make it small tasks and different types of tasks that align with interests and passions so that members want to contribute and give 2 hours or lead a trip or lead an event. So it's not so enormous and unsurmountable that they can't do it. So if we can make it small, what we call chunkify it, right? Make it a small, simple task that can be done. That's how we'll be successful. Other concerns. So age, diversity, clickiness of the club, and not welcoming. So there were some concerns around we're aging out. The club is aging out. And actually, I just did the demographics for the club. And there is like a large percentage of the club that's over 40, but 20% of the club is also Gen Z and millennials. So we are starting to bring in younger members. Is it still a concern? Absolutely. Diversity. Yes, we're predominantly a white club. Absolutely. Do we want diverse members? Yes. Have we added a diversity statement to the website? Yes. Do we aspire for this? Yes. Are there things we can do going forward? Yes. And we're trying to do that. The clicks and trying to develop a community, this is something we all need to work for when we're at an event or at a meeting. Are we being cliquey? Should we include new people? Could we be a little bit more welcoming? Oh, here's a new person, and bring them into our group. So these are all valid concerns that we as an organization need to talk about and start looking at maybe our behavior and what we're doing, and maybe there are things we can do. So the committees will look at these and see what can we do about these issues. So learnings, let me talk just a minute about a couple learnings. So a lot of folks said, look, I want to participate, but I'm too busy and I'm not local. So you don't have to be in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area to participate. So what we need to do is figure out how can we restructure the work in such a way that people can participate, or how can we get the message out there that here's something that's coming up in the next week if you want to participate. Because the reality is many people forget to go to the website to check for trips. What if we could send a reminder, but not overwhelm everyone with email? So we have to try to figure out what is this balance, but members need to be able to help us and then make choices about what's right for them. Okay. We also learned that most of the members want opportunities to connect and engage. So I think it was Kathy brought in another strategic planner who was saying that loneliness is one of the biggest issues in this country right now. And people are just yearning for engagement and connection and community. And what we learned from these surveys and from the World Cafes is that's true. But it's difficult if you're new, if you are a little bit shy, or you don't know anyone, or there's a group already talking. How do you break into that? So that's what the strategy committees are working on. Can we develop a mentor program? Can we have new member events? Can we have communities of interest? All of these are ways to try to get people to connect and engage, because we're trying to build our community. So again, these are the important learnings. I wanted to, the last series of bullets at the bottom, make some clarifications. So today we're going to talk about the strategy, our issues, our goals, our actions, and so on. So we're going to answer any questions we can there today. But I did see a number of responses where people were saying, I want an automated trip sign up, and I want to know who's on the trip before I sign up. And the reality is, we can't just list everyone who's on the trip, because we have to respect the privacy of those members who don't want their details just posted on the web. So although you might want to, as a member, know who else is coming on the trip, we can't just post everyone's personal details. So we have to understand we have some constraints to respect privacy of other members, but maybe there's some other ways we can work through this. Okay. And then the last bullet. The last bullet is really important. So when we started in this strategic planning, even from the proposal stage, we talked about the difference between a contributing member and a consumer mindset. So a consumer mindset is someone who feels like they've purchased something and then they just get something in exchange, versus someone who's in a community, who's participating and contributing in that community. And we are trying to grow the latter. We're not trying to grow consumers and rovers. What we're trying to do is grow a community where people are engaged, people are helping one another, people are leading trips because they have interest in trips. And we're trying to actually dissuade these consumers from rovers. I can't tell you how many entries I had with things like, I want rovers to provide X kind of trips. I want these types of participants, and I want it in this location. I think we're not communicating the purpose and the principles of Rovers, which is really, we're all participating, contributing members. We're not providing a service to consumers. We lead trips because we have a passion for those trips. We lead events and coordinate events because we have a passion for that. Participants come because they have a passion, and we go to certain locations because the people who are willing to volunteer and coordinate those trips want to go to those locations. It's not a service you can order. I want Rovers to do this, and Rovers will deliver. We all should contribute. So that's really important in the bottom. Somehow we have to figure out how to engage our club in such a way that we get that consumer mindset out. And we recognize we're all part of this club. We're all contributing members, and we're not here just providing a service to those who just want to receive. I'll get off my soapbox. Okay, next thing. Volunteers. So here's the exact opposite of that. These are the people who are wanting to be part of the community, wanting to volunteer, wanting to help. So 41% of the member respondents expressed an interest in potentially helping. That doesn't mean they've committed to helping. They've said, hey, I've got these skills. and I have some interest, let me know. Okay. So once the strategy committees come up with their plans, what are those short-term things we can do? What are those longer-term things we can do? We're going to form some project teams, some committees to move the work forward. And we're going to reach out to these people who've raised their hand and said, yes, I'm interested. I'm passionate. Maybe I can help, and say, look, this is where we need help. Are you still interested in it? And answer any questions and see if we can form these teams. So this is huge. This is huge for the club. So I put the benefits on the right, and then I put the contact information. If you didn't take the survey, you didn't get your name on this list, we do have a list of folks who want to help or potentially want to help. We don't know. You're not committing to anything. But if you think there's some way you want to give back or you want to volunteer, just shoot this email, shoot this email address, an email, and we'll add you to the list. And then we'll reach out to you again in the future and say, hey, you raised your hand before. Are you still interested? Here are the specifics. What do you think? So you're not committing, but if you're interested, that's the way to go. So again, this is huge. We have lots of people stepping forward, and this is great. This is exactly what we're trying to build, a community. So with that, the last slide from the survey results is I wanted to share some of the actual comments. So these are verbatim. This is exactly what was written, okay? So you can see the differences of opinion up here on the left. And this actually was not said exactly like this, but this was heard time and time again in those comments. You know, I don't think it's what the club's doing is the reason why I'm not active in the club. It's because of what's happening outside of my life, outside in my life, that's keeping me busy. Okay. So it's the outside life. We're all busy. Life is complex and complicated. So that's important. So down at the bottom in the orange, that the club feels cliquey and unwelcoming. So when a new person is approaching a new event and everyone's already talking because everyone knows each other, it can feel cliquey and unwelcoming. So think about it when we're out there. Is there something we might do differently to appear more welcoming? Just stop and say, hey, you're new. Come on, join us. So in blue, I heard this time and time again in those comments fields. Really value this. That was the difference. That was the difference between, we asked about, you know, what is your ideal club and what is different between Rovers and other clubs? And this was one of the things. We're volunteer based. Everything that happens in this club is done because people volunteer to coordinate trips. Our trip coordinators don't make any money. They still have to pay for their trips. It's because they volunteer to coordinate a trip. Up in the top right, there were also some comments about this has gone too far. We're losing the original, you know, principle for the club. I'm out. And that's okay. We're going to lose some people. We are. What we're trying to do is what's best for the overall club. And there will be some people who have paramount, you know, objections about what we're doing. And that's okay. We can't make everything work for everyone. We're trying to do our best. And then finally, about the change management, how do we turn this into actual action? That this is huge. So I just wanted to share a few of those comments with the group. And then finally, Stacy, I'm going to hand it back to you. And you remember we have a change here, right?
Right. Yep. So, well, first of all, again, I'd like to thank Laura and Kathy for the amazing work that both of you have been doing since we started meeting back in the winter, spring. So I am one of those people that doesn't like change. And I was curious to know how this was all going to work out. And it's gone beyond what I was expecting. So it's just really great to see all this, everything that's come out of it. And it'll be neat to see what happens going forward. So with this, we're not breaking out into separate groups, as Laura mentioned. We're going to stay together. And so Laura, how do you want to handle this? Do you just want people
right. So maybe what I'd like to do is kind of toss out a topic. And if I need to reopen the slide, I'll reopen the slide. But because otherwise it could just be chaotic and we could go all around. So maybe what we could do is we could start with our mission statement. And Kathy, if you have the slides open, maybe you could read it to us while I'm kind of working the room a little bit. Our mission statement, our vision statement, just to get a refresher. And then next we'll talk about values. Anyone has any questions about that? And then we'll go through each of the goals. Then we'll go through the survey and next steps and so on. So let's start with mission and vision, because again, that's our strategic framework. Kathy, you're muted, my friend. Got you, Tom?
Kathy, we can't hear you.
All right. So maybe she's having an issue. So what I will do is I will read the mission statement.
No,
then.
that's fine.
Yep. There you are.
I was unmuted, but I was reading. Okay. Okay. So the mission statement is to foster and support a community of outdoor enthusiasts in playing together, learning together, and caring for our natural world. The vision is that we are a welcoming, respectful, and friendship-oriented community of outdoor enthusiasts. So who we are is outdoor enthusiasts. Our purpose is to foster and support a community of outdoor enthusiasts that play together, learn together, and care for the natural world. And our vision is that we're welcoming, respectful, and friendship-oriented as outdoor enthusiasts.
Can I ask? I have a question. It's Melissa. Why did we include that we are friendship oriented in there as opposed to something else? Or
yes, if I remember, what we did is we had a big board and we had everyone in the room and we were tossing out what is the right words that we could possibly use. And we were trying to emphasize community, but we didn't want it to make it sound creepy, right? Like it's a meetup and you could date people there or something. Right, so we're trying to keep it on like the friend community level. If I remember correctly, Kathy?
Yes. So yes, that was actually people talked about in the World Cafes that that they valued the friendship, that the difference between meetups and the Rovers was that this was a friendship oriented place. That you got to see people over and over again. And that was part of the community building too, is that they're not strangers again. And some folks have built friendships.
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
There's a question here. How much time do we have set for the rest of the meeting? I wonder how long we can go with questions and comments.
Stacy, how long do we usually go?
I would say our presentation itself generally goes till 8:10, 8 o'clock. And then we maybe go till about 8:15 or 8:20.
Well, that's not a lot of time for questions. My question, maybe we would have people, if they just put their hands up and say, I have a question, then we would know. How's that?
We can stay on. We can stay on for as long as we want, I think.
I'd like, personally, as a facilitator, I'd like to hear it if people have questions or comments.
Yeah, we can stay on as long as people are staying on and want to hear more.
Yep.
If people need to drop off,
maybe we'll just open it up then.
Yeah.
Let's just open it up. If anyone has any questions.
I'm going to make a comment. I noticed that we topped out as far as participants this evening at 33, and we've really only lost 2, which means everyone here gives a hoot about what happens, and I find that encouraging personally.
Thank you, Rob.
Hello.
Yes.
This is Yuan. Hey, I'm going to stay just not without video. I'm a new member. I think I joined. Let's see. Anyway, I can't remember. But anyway, I'm a new member. But one of the things that I'm really impressed with is you guys have a lot of members, and I think I could contribute in a backpacking thing, since I'm an avid backpacker. And I learned that there's a backpacking people in Rover, they do privately. Now, I am totally understand why they do privately, because as I have a backpack on myself, I don't want to, let's say, jeopardize the trips or, anything that it could be, because backpacking is a lot different from day hiking, a lot different. So I guess it's not a question. I guess what I'm saying here is not a question. I am perhaps asking you guys, maybe these private or people who have a backpacking skill could have some sort of a different channel of communicating, then we could do more things, and that will also prompt me and find a way to engage with more people and different group. But right now, there's once in a while I'll go into Rovers site and I don't see any backpacking. So that's just my feedback. I learned there's a private group who does their thing, and I had no idea. So I would just keep looking at the Rovers site, and there was nothing.
So Juwan, thank you. And you actually raise a question, and it's, I think, multiple parts to your question that I heard other people put in the comments of the survey as well, which is there are cliques in Rovers where there are private activities happening. And let me just address that head on. Yes, of course there are. And that's okay, because we are people and we have friends. And sometimes we just want to do stuff with our friends rather than open it up to a bigger group. So that was one concern that lots of, not lots, I'd say, I think there was like 6 or 7 similar comments. And yes, that's going to happen because, like, if I lead a backpacking group, it's because I want to lead or coordinate a backpacking group and invite 800 potential people to join me. But there are times that I'm just going to want to backpack with Rob and Lori as my friends. So I will have private events too that I just do with them. So that, I think, is one thing. So the second thing is, Juwan, I know you're an avid backpacker. I remember when we met, and I am so looking forward to this because you can lead or coordinate a backpacking trip, and I will help you do it if you've never done it. So here's the perfect opportunity, because that's how these trips get coordinated, not because we say, I want one. It's because we go, gosh, I want one, therefore I have to lead it. So how about if you and I connect after this and let's figure out when we can get a date on the calendar and let's lead one together. And then you'll know how to coordinate one in the future and you can take off, because I know you're new. How's that? Does that answer your questions and concerns?
Thank you.
I want to chime in. This is Melissa. Juan, I don't know when you joined, but we do or did have a beginner backpacking series. Did you come up? There have been emails about that, but this is also getting to be, at least in Minnesota, the end of the backpacking season.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. So backpacking is one of those very finicky. I mean, I totally understand why there's a private group too, because I have 20 years experience in backpacking. I backpacked Colorado, Washington, everywhere. Okay. So I really miss backpacking when I moved here from Washington States. But of course, we change and we're going to have to adopt and do things as it happens. So I am willing to backpack here, but I don't see anything. So, but the first things first, I totally understand why there's a more private group with backpacking, because it's totally different. Day hiking versus backpacking is completely different thing.
I guess I'm
Laura Laura can probably say that. If you have long distance 6-7 days backpacking, it's a totally different animal than
Jinwan, I think we're going to have to, would love to talk about this more, and it sounds like Laura wants to talk with you more, but I
Yes.
think we need to hear from some other people, if you don't mind. I see Fran has her hand up.
Well, some of what I want to say kind of addresses that. I don't backpack. I have crappy knees, but I'm pretty serious, some people might say, about kayaking and about paddling. And I do paddling things with the Rovers, but I also do paddling things with other people who are skilled sea kayakers and push my skills a little bit, and where it's a challenge a little bit. And you are absolutely right. If you are going out kayaking and camping out of your kayak for a week, it's very different than an afternoon paddle on the chain of lakes. At the same time, one of the things that I do, and that I think Laura's talking about you being able to do, is do some beginner kayak camping that goes through a series of steps, partly because I would be happy to have more friends who want to be able to do a little bit more of the hardcore stuff. And at the same time, you will, when you do see trips posted, a lot of times, not always, but sometimes they will designate skill level. They may designate how difficult is this hike going to be and how fast paced is it going to be, or there are backpacking trips that get posted that say, this is not for beginners, right? And I'm kind of specific. If I'm doing some of the harder core camping stuff out of a kayak, about what skills I expect people to have or develop along the way to be able to come. And I think one of the things that happens in Rovers is that we try to have things for people at all skill levels. Not being from Minnesota, I didn't. When I joined the Rovers, I didn't winter stuff. When the stuff outside came the first year and everybody got excited, I was like, really? Skiing and snowshoeing? And now, to my great surprise, I own skis and snowshoes. But it's an opportunity for people. And one place where one thing I wouldn't want to have happen if we had separate interest groups is for people to divide up so much that it might not feel comfortable for somebody who hadn't done something before to go and check it out. And I think all of that is part of being welcoming. Let people know. So this trip, these are kind of the expectations. This trip, anybody can go on a casual hike or a paddle on the chain of lakes, and this trip is going to be a little bit more heavy duty, or we're going to need to be able to hike X many miles a day over rough terrain. So that's my thoughts.
Fran, thank you, and that's a perfect perspective. So thank you. I see Tom has his hand up. Tom.
Hey there. Just a couple of thoughts. Thank you, Laura, about your guidance about an explanation of this has really been helpful and useful and very thorough. So thanks for all of your work. Just a couple of thoughts about kind of member engagement and getting people to volunteer. I wonder if the board would consider turning volunteering less of an ask, more of kind of an expectation. There's some schools that parents are expected to contribute to, whatever, and maybe that's something we need to kind of change the mindset. Excuse me. Another thought around that too is people who volunteer, maybe there's benefits that are beyond recognition. I get, there's 2 tiers of memberships. You volunteer X amount of times and you get a cut rate in your membership. And that happens, with healthcare. If you work out, 500 days, you get a lower rate. So maybe that's the way to encourage things as well, with a tangible kind of benefit for people who do that. Another thought about just engaging with other groups, the idea about age and diversity. Is there thoughts about reaching out to outdoor groups of color and kind of doing things together, doing some activity together, so there's no pressure on each group to commit, but just to get to know each other. So yes, I'm sure there are groups around the city, but maybe do things like that.
So let me address your first question. Yes, thank you. And the committee that's working on increasing participation, contribution, and volunteers, has exactly as you've described. They're looking at tiered approaches. They're looking at benefits. So absolutely to draw in more volunteers. So yes, thank you. Those are all great suggestions. And they have those on their list. So thank you. And they're looking at them. To address your second question about diversity, in the future search in 2019, the strategy was, look, we're all middle-aged white people, or mostly. What are we going to do to diversify to make sure we're still sustainable? And we formed a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And Lori was on that committee. I was on the committee. There was, I don't know, a dozen of us, including some people of color, which was wonderful. What we did was we decided, what can we do as an organization? And we did actually reach out to a number of organizations, people of color. We sponsored a booth at a diversity group. And what we learned was, yeah, sure, you guys are great. You're Rovers, you do great things, but you know what? I like doing things with my own type of people. So again, it's not about the club. It's about their personal preference. They want to be around like people. So can we still continue to make efforts to increase diversity? Absolutely. Absolutely. But until we start actually getting more and more people in our club, we're not going to be as attractive as people of their own type. You see what I'm saying? And I speak to that as a lesbian because, quite frankly, we sponsored a booth at an LGBTQ event, and they all approached and they said, "Oh my God, are you a gay club?" And I said, "No, but they're really supported. They love us. They don't care. They support us. You want to join?" And they're like, "God, no. Why would I want to join?" So yeah, they're not disliking us. It's their preferences for another more like group.
And let me add to what Laura said very quickly, and that is the reason that we took the words, that the group took the words outdoor enthusiasts, is it doesn't matter how old you are, where you work, what color you are, what your nationality is, what your ethnicity is, and it can be much more inviting without having to specify, oh yes, we want more Latinos or more Asians or more Black, or you see what I'm saying? And so hopefully, I think Tom, I would agree with you. My daughter is Chinese, it'd be great to have her and her friends feel more welcome. And we can work on that as white people, God help us. All right. At the same time, she's going to want to come with her posse. All right. And so that's going to be something that we're going to have to think about and work toward. But the good news is we've got some millennials as well as Gen Zers joining our group, and they are a much more diverse generation than we have ever been.
One way of possibly advancing that would be to, at an organizational level, Laura, you mentioned having made some contacts with other organizations in the past. Instead of trying to recruit individuals, it might be helpful to.
We did, David. We tried to partner with a couple organizations, and they just said, "Look, why would we partner with you guys? We have our own stuff going on. We're fine."
Well, what I was going to say was, if we were to suggest sponsoring a one evening event in which we shared some of our mutual experiences just for the edification of each other. In other words, what kinds of trips have you done and what have you done? Not asking anybody to join in or anything, but just to get additional perspectives on what's out there.
Yeah, we tried that too. And because we changed our approach in the middle, we said, well, let's partner, let's get together, let's do something together. Well, maybe we could just share. Maybe you could use our equipment. And in all instances, we tried different approaches. In all instances, we were told, you know what? We're happy with our own. And we're not interested. But thanks for reaching out. And we're really glad that you guys are trying to diversify, but we like our own. So I'm not trying to discount David, because it's really important. When we were on the committee, that's what we tried, different things. We reached out directly. We tried this. We tried a partnership. We said, just take our equipment. Maybe, yeah. And in all cases, we said, no.
Well, we'll work on it.
Yeah.
I
There you
used to-
go. Yeah,
I-
we're open to trying new things, but it wasn't successful.
Yeah. Well, let me throw out another idea quickly and see where it goes. But Lori mentioned, and Lori, you and I have talked about it as well, some of the communication issues. And among other things, you and I talked about the newsletter. I don't hold myself out as any sort of authority or expert by any means, but I've done a fair amount of magazine and other types of writing. And it occurred to me that it might be of interest to some members to sign up for a writing class. We could talk about structuring short articles, whether it's 500 words or 1,500 words or what have you, on trips or adventures or preparing equipment, you name it. But just to get people in the mode of thinking about and writing about things of interest to them that pertain to Rovers, that material then could be used in newsletters as a way of showing the membership what other people are doing or have done. And maybe that would help to get people a little more engaged in the whole communications effort.
Yes, David, you are on the top of my communications volunteer list, let me just say.
I should have kept my mouth shut.
No,
No, you were there before you spoke up, so thank you.
It's a great idea.
I also see, it is, and you're at the top of my list, David. I also see another hand, Jody.
Hi. I do like that idea. Many years ago, we had, I think, an actual printed newsletter that was mailed. And of course, it stopped because it got to be too much work. People stopped having time to write for it, but that would be cool. We could have a blog on the website or whatever. But the reason I raised my hand was I like that piece where you're talking about the consumer mindset, where people, they become a member and they want this and want that. But my question is, where you're also saying during all of this that the strategic planning is we're doing this and this and this because people want this and this and this. So where do you draw the line and decide which ones are to put in our goals versus saying, oh, that's just a consumer mindset?
Can I answer that one, Laura? All right.
Please.
So I was the one who brought up the consumer mindset at the first time. And that is because as a member, I've experienced that. It's one of the things is that I remember when I first joined the Rovers 8 years ago, I wanted to do canoe trips and everybody was going kayaking. Sorry, Fran. So I thought, well, let me put a canoe trip together. And lo and behold, I had 10 other people come. And so I kept doing that every year. And I enjoyed it to the point where we had like 30 canoes at once, which was way too much. However, I took a year or two off, and then somebody came up to me at one of the events, had been in one of these things, and said, I really wish you would do these canoe trips again. I said, well, I said, life intruded. Can't do it this. He said, well, I haven't been on one since you did it. And so I just feel really sad about that. And I said, well, why don't you do it? You put it on. You've been on 3 of mine. Do it. And it was just that sense of, I paid my $25. And I've also seen from other folks too that, and in fact, many of the comments, the Rovers should be doing this. I haven't seen enough of these kinds of hiking trips or this kind of that, or this kind of that, or this kind of that. Part of that, I think, is that when we went to the World Cafe, we did not ask people what activities they wanted, what they wanted. We asked them, what is the ideal club? And interestingly enough, they said, it's one that has a community of people. That's what they said, where they can make friends, where they can have fun together, where they can learn things together, where they could have a mission around the nature, etc. And very few people in those World Cafes ever said, I wish we had more hiking events. It was really interesting. So when Jody, when we say, we're using people's input about the dreams of what they see as an ideal outdoor club. And we told them also that this is a self-organized club. I don't see that hopefully ever going away unless you want to join one of these expensive places, okay? Because I do think that the people who run the club are the people who are in the club, and it's self-organized. I, Kathy, want to go on a canoe trip, so let me organize and coordinate a canoe trip. So and maybe I, Kathy, don't know how to do it. Gosh, maybe Melissa can help me and we'll get one done, and then I'll feel confident doing it. So that is really kind of what the club is working for, and think about helping people identify what they want and then helping them put out the kind of activities they're looking for. Over and out. I'm done.
Thank you, Kathy. That was beautiful. Anyone else have any questions? Rover Rob.
Yeah, so to that end, as far as getting more people to actually lead trips, I think it's something that we could build into the intro that we all see at every meeting, and just emphasize that from the get-go, from the first log on or first contact with the new or potential new member, that you are a potential trip leader coordinator, not leader coordinator, and really start drumming that in from the get-go, because I think that a lot of people do end up with that consumer mindset because of what they're used to, not necessarily because of what we do, but they just come in thinking that, okay, what do they have to offer me? And we just need to emphasize that it's a two-way street on that. With that, I will end that.
Thank you, Rob.
And I can't find my little hand to raise up, but I do have a question. I do have a suggestion. I think we could all benefit, even for when we teach people how to coordinate trips, about the art of hosting. How do you coordinate a trip so that you can help people feel, get to know each other and feel comfortable together and make friends together as they do the trip? Too often I've been on trips where, they barely ever go around even and say, and if they do, they'll, yeah, my name is so-and-so and I've been a Rover for X years. Next. And that doesn't help anybody if you're brand new. And so I'm thinking some training in the art of hosting versus just even the technicalities of doing a trip would be helpful.
Thank you. That's really great, Kathy, because we did hear a lot of comments about some of the trips are really fabulous. The trip leaders really brought us together. Then other trips, it's like, yeah, no, not so much. So that's a great idea.
Melissa. Oh, you had a question? Oh, no.
I was clapping for you.
Oh.
Sorry.
Anyone else?
Ruth has a comment. I hope we can reconsider the statement that we can't list the names of people who sign up for an event.
So, Ruth,
can I speak to that a little?
Yeah, can I give you a statistic first, Lori, that you don't know yet because you haven't seen the deck, because I won't send it until after this meeting's over.
Sure.
We just did an analysis of our membership and discovered that 8 to 18% of our members don't want to share any details. So they wouldn't share their birthday, they wouldn't share where they're from, they wouldn't share what state they're in. They just don't want to share details because they want their privacy respected. Many Rovers use a different email address to even communicate. So there's a lot of people out there who are very concerned about their privacy. So we have the numbers that support. Many members are very concerned about sharing their details. Lori.
So to speak to that, one idea that we are considering and thinking of working on is a collaboration site within our sign in as a member website. So you have one sign in to go in and use all these different tools on our website at some point, we hope. Like, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but we're talking about collaboration site where we could have a trip coordinator have all their information from their trip that they put out on there, and then they can have anyone on that trip be on that Excel sheet or whatever it is, or that collaboration site just privately. And then they can have a list of who's going on that trip because they're going on that trip. So they will get to know you and your name and stuff anyway. So, I mean, these people will have your information and you'll have everyone on that trip and you'll know what everybody's going to be bringing and you can work together and get all the details done before you go. So that's one possibility. So we're hoping that that's where we'll get, and that won't be putting the trip names out in the open, even out to the rest of the club. It'll just be for the trips you're going on. And I could do Lori C.
Yeah, so if I can say more about this, I mean, when we do it I've done a lot of Meetup, and when you do it on Meetup, like I'm Ruth R, just like you're Lori C. And
Right.
So I don't really see where people seeing that is giving away a lot of privacy about me. It's, but it's nice to look at an event and go, oh, there's 12 people on there. That feels good to me. Or there's only one person on there. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go on a trip where there's only one person. So it's nice to know ahead of time, kind of how big the group is, and maybe also if, who the people are, in case you've met some people and you're like, oh, I want to go on that because so-and-so's on it. So I don't know. That's my thought.
Yeah. One thing, though, that I do want to point out is I started coming to Rovers on my own back in 98, and I didn't know hardly anybody. And I got to know people by going to the meetings, and that's when I started to go on trips. And then by going on those trips, you start meeting other people. And I found that there are people I never would have thought I would have as friends, just because we don't have, we're not in the same place in life or whatever, that I love. I enjoy talking to, love going on a hike with them so we can chat, or we've had relationships outside of Rovers now. And I'd hate to see so much division that people don't get to meet other people. Like, I would have never been a bicyclist had I not been a Rover and said, hey, you're going on that? Is it going to be hard? And then, getting better at it, and climber and canyoneering never even entered my mind that I'd want to canyoneer. But I've done that now, and it's just travel, everything. Things I would have never thought I'd want to do or never thought about doing, just never thought about it, have come through Rovers. And people I meet, though, that's the other thing. I would hate for people to look and say, oh, I don't want to go in that group because so-and-so's there. I don't know that person.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean that, but like I have had someone call me and say, hey, is so-and-so on there? Because they make me really uncomfortable and I don't want to go on a trip with that person. And so there is some advantage. I mean, sometimes you want to avoid people, but other times it's just, are you comfortable with the size of the group? Like, not everybody's comfortable with everything. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, the size of the group should be on the posted trip. That is there.
And I would say if somebody's reporting somebody they're uncomfortable with, that should be reported to the board.
even if it's just uncomfortable and they maybe have to have a little talk, someone they know may be able to talk to them. We could be very discreet about it and not have any names. But it would be good for the board to know, because
I don't know that I would tell them they need to do that. I mean, I just, I don't know. I mean, I always liked it on Meetup when I could see who's on the trip. That's all.
You could get into some legal issues if you start warning people off, and
but if it's
I think it's important, but it's also tricky.
I would agree. Yeah.
It's kind of like this when we're all friends. If someone else that knows them well could say, that's kind of weird when you bring that up, or something to that effect, to just kind of make them realize that that's not real comfortable for a lot of people. Rob, can you speak to this?
I think you draw the line at inappropriate behavior. That's where you draw the line.
Yeah, and we do have policies for that.
Yeah.
So those policies are in place for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. But when it becomes like a personality conflict or something, that's a different story. I see a couple more hands up. So, Jody, is your hand still up from your previous question, or is this a new question?
No, this is new, but I think Lori said a lot of what I wanted to say. I'm kind of go back and forth on the names, just a few things, like back in '98, like Lori mentioned, we had sign up sheets where you wrote your name on a piece of paper if you were interested, and you'd pass the folder around the bar and you'd see who was on the trip. So that was kind of cool. But I think my main concern is we're talking about fostering community, and then we're also throwing all of this, technology, and I don't know if it was shared in this meeting or if it's in our committee stuff about, doing fewer meetings and canceling extravaganzas and things like that. And I worry that that's not fostering community. I think we need more in-person stuff. And Lori kind of covered that too, where you're actually talking about trips. And I've told people in the past, and I've gone to Jen's trip coordinating workshops and told people, some people, they coordinate a trip and they're like, there's no interest, or, they don't let it simmer long enough, but a lot of times you have to talk to people and say, hey, you want to go on this trip? It's pretty cool. And I know Rovers are a bunch of introverts, but it's people talk out of both sides of their mouth. It's like, I'm an introvert, I don't want to talk to anyone, but I want them to talk to me. Well, we're all in the same boat. And I think we got to remember that. And so I don't know what the perfect balance is. I get that we need this or that, but then, you give up things in the process. So
yeah,
that was my
good point, Jody. It's a good point. And we're trying to find that balance by creating like new member events or creating, social events and so on. So we're trying to find that balance, and they'll work on it. Fran, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. Like Lori, this will probably surprise you, but when I went to my very first Rover meeting, I was terrified and had to talk myself into it. I was newly single. I was trying to figure out, I was trying to build, more of support and friends and people who like to do stuff that I liked to do. And I wasn't even a kayaker then, Kathy.
Oh.
And I went to this meeting at Como, and I thought, well, okay, it's at Como. If I hate it, I can leave and I'll still be at Como Park, and that's okay. And I went, and when the trips were announced, I was blown away by the trips, and I started talking to people about trips, and I signed up for a Boundary Waters trip with a whole bunch of strangers that first night because I was so excited about it. But also, when I think about early things when I connected with people, I mean, some of it was talking at the meetings, and some of it was the bar afterwards. And also, I really remember my first extravaganza where I really got to know people well. And I think that one of the things for all that, Zoom and virtual things has been wonderful and brought people in and got us through the pandemic and all of that. I hate to see us move away from some of the in-person kinds of things. And like Jody, I mean, if we have fewer in-person meetings and we don't have an extravaganza and we don't have some of that, it may be harder for people to have that kind of sense of community. I also, I'm in a kayak club where you sign up online, and when you sign, and you can click on, when you're going and looking, you can see who's registered for that trip. And one of the things that for some people is helpful about that is they go and they go, okay, at least I know this one person who's going. And they feel safer signing up. I get the privacy stuff, but I also think that sometimes just even knowing one person on a trip when you're not sure can make it feel safer. So I think those are things we have to consider. And I'll shut up.
Yes, thank you, Fran. Good points. Very good points. Thank you. Melissa.
I just wanted to say, to address do you get to know who goes on the trip when you sign up? In some ways you do, because as the trip gets closer, a lot of times there's a email blast from the coordinator, and you can see all the people they've sent it to. And if there's a spreadsheet that we all seem to be creating for these trips, you get access to that and you get to see. I understand maybe you want to know a little more ahead of time, but there are ways you do eventually find out. And if you haven't made your non-refundable deposit, you can maybe drop out if you're not comfortable. So, yeah, there's some ways right now. It's not very, I don't know the right word. Anyway, there's some ways right now. Thank you.
And it's true. You can always reach out to the coordinator, and the coordinator will share the details with you. Right. Exactly. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Other questions, concerns, or should we wrap this up?
Wrapping up.
Well, this is my first meeting, and I want to say I was impressed. I felt welcomed. And I didn't find any of you particularly offensive. So it's a successful night. Well, there was one person, but I won't mention their name.
Give me time, David.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
David, glad to meet you in person. We'll talk. Great. Fabulous. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and thanks for staying, and thanks for sharing your thoughts about this. It's really important because there is no right answer. What we're trying to do is come up with the best answer, the best interests of the club in mind. So everything we hear influences how we get there. So thank you.
Well, I thank all of you that participated in all these things, because it really means a lot. And we'll maybe be saying that in 20 years. Remember back when? Thank you.
Exactly. Thanks, Rob. Jody, do you have another question, or is your hand just kind of like?
No, I put it down and up again. I know we just stopped, but I want to say one more thing to acknowledge what Ruth was saying, because she sent a comment, and part of what I was going to say before too, and I forgot, that there's nothing to say we can't. I mean, it's more work for the coordinator, but to create a list, and if people ask, and that was part of my, people need to be a little forthcoming. If they want to see a list, then ask the coordinator, and the coordinator can say, there's nothing saying we can't do that. Not share all the information, but a lot of times we do. If I'm coordinating a trip, I create a spreadsheet and share that with people, not to the whole world, but the people who have signed up for it. And the reason I wanted to throw this in there before the end is I also worry with some of the things we're talking about with technology. I think a lot of it's great and useful, but I also don't want to pigeonhole people into saying this is how you must coordinate a trip. This is how, because then, that can lead to people, roadblocks, people that are technology adverse or just don't want to do it that way. And then, we want to encourage people to coordinate their trips however they want to. So I just wanted to bring that up, that we want to be careful of that as we're going through this exercise.
I want to say I agree with that, Jody. one of the things that I appreciate about how we do trips is the latitude that's given to trip coordinators about all kinds of things like level of difficulty, how many people come, and even through the pandemic, you know, whether or not vaccines were required. I mean, all of these things, or you know, my own little personal bugaboo, if you paddle with me, you got to wear a PFD. All of those things.
Gosh.
I know. So yeah, you got to wear it, not just bring it. But you know, I appreciate the fact that trip coordinators do have a certain amount of latitude in how they want to do it and what they want their trip to be and how they want to define it. So
Exactly. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fran.
One final comment, Fran, I sent you a message.
Oh,
You
okay.
can respond offline, but I didn't want it to get missed.
Okay. All right.
Great.
I
Okay.
will get back to you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see everyone next Tuesday. Thanks for
Right.
joining.
Thanks for watching this Minnesota Rovers presentation. If you want to see more, please click on the link to our channel or the subscribe button below. Thank you.